Hey guys, what's going on? Shah here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a build for Prot Warrior that actually might make them relatively viable. This was commented on my last YouTube video by Keg. Thank you, Keg, for giving me posting this here. Shout out to you. So how it's going to read is I'll also post it on the screen. If you guys can't really read it, it's kind of hard. So it reads, "Hey Shah, give a look at this Prot Warrior build. I showed it to Andy Brew and he criticized it at first, but then said it could possibly work. You can theoretically, with enough crit and haste, have permanent uptime on shield block due to double dipping on the proc chance of revenge setting the shield block CD. It's a really high damage AoE build too. I was doing 6k plus DPS without really min-maxing it. Definitely potential here. Ugly link below." We're going to hit this ugly link and take it over to the build. So two things that Keg mentioned here is that the idea of shield block, or the idea is to have permanent uptime on shield block, which is something that you were able to pretty much have during BFA, which is what made Prot Warrior so strong. Now, like I've talked about in previous videos, is that there's a lot of magical damage going out in some of these newer keys. So this might not be as great, but as long as you have shield block uptime, and like good shield block uptime, like most physical damage is not even going to bother a warrior at all. It's going to be like tickling damage. Now, with that being said, the other part of this build is that it also has a very high damage output, and I'm going to break down the build here. So I'm going to have this link in the description below so you guys can see it. It won't be as ugly as Keg's one. I'll create like a bit.ly for it. So let me walk through these talents, soulbinds, and legendaries, and then I'm going to show you how the rotation works. I'm then going to talk about my slight iterations to the build for specific reasons why I'll get to in a second, and then I'll maybe talk through a dungeon log. Maybe I think that might be a good idea. So yeah, we'll do that today. So, starting off the talents. So, we're going to ignore the 25 and 35 row because they don't really mean anything. Like, this is a mobility slash CC row. And then this is like mobility slash utility row with stuns. So, you can... I normally run double time and bounding stride or crackling thunder depending on the key. But with this build, like, you don't... never mind. I won't get into that. I'm going to start ranting here in a second. So, Devastator, you essentially take this to replace Devastate. This removes a pointless button from your rotation. You don't really need the filler because of how fast-paced this build is. And this is going to have additional resets on Shield Slam, which is going to get you just, additional rage generation. So this is just a good choice. It takes away the filler, and it makes your Shield Slam a little bit more valuable, which is good. Take Booming Voice. This is going to give you rage gen, plus it's going to make the mobs that are hit by it and affected by it take 20% increased damage for the duration of the shout, which I think is 8 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. It might be a little longer than that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Indomitable. This is a legendary in Legion, which is now a talent. Pretty good healing. And the idea is, again, with rage generation, as you're spending it, you're going to be healing and recovering from that, like, that tickle damage or the magical damage that's hitting you. Pretty good here. Never Surrender and Impending Victory were just, like, never great options anyways, so like this is really the only viable one anyways. And then we have Ravager in our 45 row. This is taken slightly for damage, but the damage it actually does is not as great as you might think it is, but the rage is what's going to be like super good here. So over 12 seconds you're going to be every time it does damage you're going to get 10 rage. Now this isn't for every mob it hits. Like if there's 10 mobs, you're not going to get 100 rage every time it does damage. You're going to still get only 10 rage every time like the initial tick of Ravager is proccing. So this will probably grant you roughly a full rage bar over the duration of its 12 seconds, or like 80 rage or something like that. And it is target capped, by the way. And then we're going to run Bolster. While I think maybe like heavy repercussions could have synergy with the Devastator talent, the Bolster is going to give you that 15 seconds of shield block to let your charges recharge. The issue with this is if you are getting procs of... If you're getting procs of like the free revenge and that's procking the recharges of your shield block, this might lose its value because the idea of Last Stand is that it gives it like enough time to recharge a little bit more than one. Obviously, depending on haste, it gives you like almost a full recharge of shield block. But like if shit's procking, you're going to want to hit those shield block charges so you're not over capping on the procs for the free charge to be returned to you. So like I can see in like a high build, you might actually run heavy repercussions just because you're getting more shield slime rage and it's extending the duration of your shield block. So as long as it's active, you're getting a pretty big benefit. Anger management was just nerfed into the ground. It really only benefits Avatar and like Shield Wall, which are two fine cooldowns. Avatar is now pretty much only an offensive ability because you're not getting like that insane amount of mastery anymore from Azrael traits. And there is a Shield Wall build you can run with anger management that is fairly effective. You can get like Shield Wall down to like a minute and a half cooldown ish. So like these are all good choices depending on your build. But in this case, we're going to be running bolster. Heavy repercussions, like down the road, I can see being a little bit more valuable than bolster, but we'll get into that later. So soul binds. Now, Keg, if you're watching this, correct me if I'm right, or just like clarify, I guess. You chose Bonesmith for a very specific reason, and I think that reason is because of ranged attacks, like, or when you're getting hit, you're doing additional damage plus critical strike increase with the Marrow Gemstone. I'm pretty sure is what you're going for here. So, but I think the idea is you want triple endurance, and like this finesse conduit's like really, really good. So that's why you probably chose a specific tree. But I'm going to walk you through it as well. Like I went Kyrian, and for reasons I'll get to in a second, but I'll explain that. So we're going to be running Iron Maiden, which has a chance for revenge to reset the shield block charge, and that's what I've been talking about this whole time. So that was probably important to know. We also have Disturb the Peace, which just lower shockwave cooldown. This one's not as important, but it is a good finesse conduit, especially for Mythic Plus. Ignore Pain. The damage you deal adds to your current Ignore Pain, which means you can spend less time on refreshing your Ignore Pain, depending on the damage intake you're taking as a tank player. And you can focus more on putting out Revenge, which is then adding to the shield. And then Unnerving Focus has Last Stand. When Last Stand is active, your rage gen is increased by X%. In this case, it's 27. Now, the one thing to note about this tree is that it's assuming that all your conduits are max rank. This isn't necessarily the case, especially with the warrior build and the logs that I'm going to be showing you. This is essentially you have rank 1 conduits, which means it's going to be, I think, a 4% chance to refund a charge. This is like 6 seconds. The brutal vitality is, I think, as well 6 seconds, and unnerving focus is 30% increased rage gen. But with all that in mind, actually wait, legendaries. So I think this is called Seismic Reverberation. Yeah, Seismic Reverberation. So this one, what your Whirlwind and your Revenge is going to proc again or do damage again, depending on if you're hitting 3 or more targets. So if that even makes sense, I'm gonna just reset that. If you're hitting 3 or more targets with Revenge or Whirlwind, it's going to hit a second time. So the idea of this build is you'll hit Revenge essentially all the time, and it's gonna double dip into the proc to refund a shield block charge. So you essentially could have 100% uptime. Now, a few things to keep in mind. I guess like a smaller one is that I don't have a ranked 15 conduit. I have a rank 1, so it's 4% chance. So it's really, really low. I don't know if it's per enemy hit or if it's just per, like, I guess, like, I don't know if it's per enemy hit or if it's just per use. And then the bigger thing is that the double dipping doesn't work. The secondary damage doesn't count as, like, it counts as revenge, but it doesn't, if that makes sense. So even running with this legendary and running without this legendary, I was getting the same amount of, I was getting similar amount of recharges based off of how many revenges I was casting. So this legendary isn't that great, but I'm going to walk you through the build really quick on beta. So you're going to see that I'm on a Kyrian warrior. This is meant to, there's a reason for this. So the tree isn't going to value, like, it's not going to give me as much crit, but what it is going to do is I actually went with Melkanos. It's only because I'm too lazy to actually unlock these right now, though I think Pelagos might be a better option, but he gives verse amplifiers. But with Melkanos here, similar style, we can get all 3 endurance conduits plus Disturb the Peace, but we're also going to get haste from this guy as well, and this haste is essentially going to replace / fill in for Into the Fray, which is typically a popular choice for for protection warriors. So that's why I went with him. You also can get a knockback here, which is fine. Plus a little bit extra healing from Bronze Call to Action. It's not like an insane amount. It's actually really, really low, but it's a nice little buff every 90 abilities. Plus with how many abilities you're going to be using because of your additional haste and how fast warrior feels right now, this is going to proc a little bit more than other tanks like Guardian Druid or something like that. So the idea of this build is you're going to charge in, you're going to use Avatar, Demo Shout, you're going to put up your shield block, and then you can like Shield Slam, Shots, Ignore Pain, then you're going to Ravager and Bastion. And this is going to just like cap your rage bar and keep you capped for like 15 seconds, which is pretty cool. And then as you're doing this, and you're going to be spending all your rage pretty much into Revenge until your shield block or Ignore Pain actually falls off. So like you're still going to have to keep track of these, but then the assumption is that your Revenge is going to proc back your shield block. Now again, I will clarify that instead of being a 9.6% chance, it's only going to be a 4% chance. So it's going to be a little bit lower. Plus I'm on target dummies, so it's not going to be as Wow, that's a lot of fucking rage. It's not going to be... I totally lost my train of thought. I definitely lost my train of thought. So, this is essentially a rotation. Like, your rage is just, like, always capped, it feels like. We got a reset there. I shouldn't have hit shield block that fast. But, target dummies just means I'm not going to be able to do... I'm not going to be getting additional resets on my revenge, which just means none of them are going to be free, which isn't, like, a huge deal. But the uptime you're able to keep is a little bit higher with this build because you're able to just focus on hitting revenge more often. Plus, when you're in a keys situation, you're going to be taking damage, which is going to give you rage, which is cool. So you have to, like, take this as a grain of salt. But I'm gonna walk through some logs, or maybe I'll have some gameplay up as well. So the damage you could do on like 5 targets is super, super high. And then as these abilities come up, you're gonna just use them. So I threw out Ravager again. It's not hitting hard. It's hitting for like 500 on each mob. But the idea is that... Oh, I got a proc. Yay. The idea is that you're just able to have this insane amount of rage gen. Ravager falls off, you Spear of Bastion, gives you 20 more rage. You can then put that into another shield block. It's great. Now, with how weak Horus is kind of hard to keep track of. But this build is, like, really cool, really fast-paced, and does, like, an insane amount of damage on just 5 targets. Now, you're going to see most of it's going to be Revenge, Deep Wound, Spear of Bastion, like, kind of your typical stuff. Ravager's not doing a whole lot for me here. But it's the rage gen. And that's why I went Kyrian for the Spear of Bastion, because I think it has synergy in both the effect itself, but also having increased damage and... Where am I going with this? And just the rage gen in general is just great. So that's how this is working. Now, the few changes I would have to this build, and it depends on your secondary stat values, is running Thunderlord Stompers instead. So this is going to increase your rage generation, because every time you Thunderclap, it's going to lower the cooldown of Demo Shout by, like, depending on how many targets you have, by like an absolutely metric fuckload. So we're going to throw these boots on, and we're going to go back in here. Now, what I like about this build... So I have 10 seconds left, right? It's off of cooldown. I'm going to hit this. I'm going to get the rage gen from it. And just keep, like, plowing fucking abilities. You're still going to have a chance to get resets without this, but it's not going to double dip, which I've noticed doesn't really affect it all that much. And then I'm going to Thunderclap again. And within 2 Thunderclaps, it's already down to, like, it's off of cooldown now. So I can just hit it again and get the rage gen. So every time I use it, it's going to give me 40 rage. I found that in a key scenario... This has a lot higher value because sometimes you're going to be pulling more than 5 mobs, and the rage gen is just so much higher because if you can cast Demo Shout every 15 seconds, they're going to be taking increased damage from you for a lot higher uptime, and you're going to be generating 40 rage a lot faster than you would if you had to wait the full 45 seconds for it to come off of cooldown. So I like this legendary a lot more in this circumstance, and like I said, I think Heavy Repercussions could be a good choice as well. But the thing about this is, like, you have to have shield block active in order for the shield slime to extend the shield block. So those are, like, the 2 things that I would change about this build. But, like, the build overall is looking really, really good. I think Bronze down there just, like, whacking away. Oh yeah, that's why I'm still in combat. So this is gonna fall off pretty severely. But I like the rage gen with this legendary a little bit more, just because I don't think with like the 4 or 5 keys that I ran in this build, I just don't think this actually procs. The second proc actually resets charges. Now, if someone can absolutely confirm that it does, I'll, like, withdraw this statement. But as of right now with testing that I've done, I have no more shield procs, like, refreshes than I would if I was running a different legendary. So we jumped over to a log here, and I wanted to break down why, or I guess how many times I was able to get shield block off in a dungeon, which is about 3.9 per minute. This was a 17-minute dungeon, if I'm able to do that. So 67 per minute, so 3.9, which means you're casting 1 every, 15 seconds, because 4 in a minute's 60 seconds. So essentially I'm casting shield block as soon as the charge comes up. And this was running that legendary, which means I wasn't able to really get additional charges. Now, there was some periods where there was, like, just downtime, as you can see, and there were some overlaps in here as well. But in general, being able to cast it essentially on cooldown just kind of essentially is how I'm reading it and how I remember it, at least looking back at the footage of the key, is that I think over the course of the key I got 4 resets or 3 resets on it, and I was running the legendary to double dip. So if you're in theory double dipping, like, not that you're essentially doubling your chance from 4 to 8% to proc it, but you have a lot more 4% chances to proc it based off of how many targets your revenge hits. So if we actually go back to, no, not that. We're going to come to here. We're going to remove this ID, and we're going to actually look at revenge. There we go. So I cast revenge 10 times per minute. So every about 6 seconds on average, I was casting revenge. And with 182 casts, 4% of 182 is roughly like 3 to 4. Now, I'm not sure if this is counting the double damage or the double hit, because this is how many casts it did. Maybe I should look at how many hits. See if that can, maybe I can find how many hits. So 148 hits. Huh. Oh, that's the mobs. Okay, never mind. How many hits did I have total? I can't even see. Do I have to add this up by hand? Oh my god. I'll be right back. I gotta add this up. So it looks like the total amount of hits I got there was 653, and 4% of that, I don't, math, multiply by 0.04, so 26. So if it was based off of hits, this build would be insane, because that means I'd have 26 resets over the course of a key, which you can pretty much get an additional like proc and a half per minute, or not proc and a half, but additional use and a half per minute. And that's with me being a bad player. So if like a good player was doing this, that'd be pretty insane. But it looks like more or less it was actually based off of the 67 cast of shield block and the 182 cast of revenge, because if you do 4%, so with this key having like 3 resets, 182 multiplied by 0.04, 4%, like in theory it should have been 7 resets, like if you're going strictly based off of math, but I did not get that many resets over the course of the key. I got like 4. So is this build, I'm getting these weird ass ads, man. So if this build worked the way it was theorized, I think it could be really, really good. I think if the amount of times you can cast revenge and the amount of times revenge hit, plus the legendary actually double dipping the chance of it proccing, it would be good. But I don't think that's the case. So the double dipping definitely doesn't work, because in this key I was running this legendary. The rage gen is a little low, and it's not practical to use in like any situation where there's more than like you want to have at least 3 targets. So in a single target encounter, it's not useful. You need to be doing it's only going to be great. This build's only going to be that like okay probably in dungeons that have like a lot of like where you can actually chain pull. Like in Necrotic Wake, I was able to try and always have 3 or more targets to hit. But there's some dungeons like Theater of Pain where you might not always have 3 targets to hit. Actually, in a lot of circumstances, you don't have necessarily 3 targets to hit. So a lot of the value is lost with running Ravager, with like Revenge. The legendary itself isn't really working that well. Now, something that I didn't do that great of in this key was actually my last stand. I only used it twice, because that's like another thing is like when you're running lower keys, sometimes you don't feel like you need to. I don't even think did I even hit shield wall? I literally didn't even hit shield wall on this key. Like there's just sometimes lower keys like, so this log might not be crazy accurate, but I wanted to kind of just get a general representation of what this is going to look like. So my final thoughts on this build, which I kind of just already went over, is that pros of this build, good damage, it's fun and fast paced, and it has like okay healing through Indomitable because of the amount of rage gen you can have. But the theory of what the build should be doing and how it actually is going to work isn't that great. Now I'm going to do further testing with this, because this build is a lot of fun to play, and even like doing +6s, I mean, it's plus, oh shit, just because it's a +6 doesn't mean like I mean I'm still in template gear essentially, just I look really good. I'm going to do further testing, and I want to see if I can get this build right, because I want warriors to be semi-viable, and I think they can be with this playstyle, but we're going to have to wait and find out. So I want to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to have some discourse about this, because it's quite apparent that warrior right now is like the only tank that really doesn't feel that great in its kind of generic build, and people have been trying to figure out a way to get it right. So I'd like to help doing that. I would like to help test and theorize and see what we can do to make this game a little better. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. If you did like this video and like this kind of content, please hit that subscribe and that like button, and it helps me know that you like seeing this kind of stuff. And I hope you guys are having a great rest of your day, evening, or whenever you decide to watch this, and I will catch you all in the next one. Take care.